From the nation's capital, Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. A weekly discussion about the federal issues most important to Nevada. And now, from Washington, D.C., here's Marilee Joyce.
And good day to you. I'm Marilee Joyce, and this is Eye on Washington, the only statewide Nevada news program produced in Washington, D.C. Every week, Eye on Washington takes you straight to Capitol Hill for a discussion with Nevada's delegation and other leaders about the federal matters that matter to you. Today's topic, the power of the purse, a look at the committee that unveils that big omnibus appropriations bill each year. My guest today is the sole Nevadan on it. He is Nevada U.S. Congressman Mark Amodei, and thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Marilee.
Appreciate it. And today on Eye on Washington, we're going to tell you what the Appropriations Committee does. We'll find out what subcommittees my guest serves on, one of which he is the vice chairman. Later in the show, a look at that $1.1 trillion omnibus appropriations bill and what it means to you in Nevada. The House Appropriations Committee is one of the most powerful bodies on Capitol Hill. Now, my guest and its other 50 members are seen as influential. Well, what's the big deal? Well, the committee holds the power of the purse. Example, much of the funding for defense, social programs, even the cost of operating the federal government itself must first be endorsed by this committee. Little history for you. In 1865, the House of Representatives separated the appropriating and banking and currency duties from the Committee on Ways and Means and assigned them to two new committees, the Committee on Appropriations and the Committee on Banking and Currency. That original committee had just 9 members. Membership over the years went as high as 66 before settling on the current total of 51. Now, my guest is the sole Nevadan helping make the huge decisions that come out of appropriations. And when he was named to the committee in 2013, Congressman Amodei said, quote, "I look forward to being a strong voice on Western issues. The appropriations process will strengthen our ability to advocate for Nevada's issues as well as for our national spending priorities." And Congressman, welcome back to Eye on Washington. You know, I wanted to start the discussion today by letting you explain the importance of the word appropriations. I did a show with Senator Reed a bit ago, and we were talking about the reauthorization of the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act. And he said, Marilee, what your audience needs to understand here is it's one thing to pass a bill, another thing to make sure it gets funded year after year.
Right.
What's appropriations?
Well, appropriations is basically the committee that decides where the money's actually going to be spent. The Budget Committee does a budget. The Appropriations Committee then takes the overall numbers and decides how they plug in to make those up in the 12 respective areas. Appropriations does 12 spending bills that cover everything that is discretionary spending, which is defense, education, EPA, labor issues, all that stuff, everything but Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and interest on the debt. And
appropriations they're endorsed, for lack of a better word, by you and your committee members. Is that correct?
Right. The committee sends 12 bills to the floor in a regular order context, and each one of those bills is debated and then sent over to the Senate. The counterpart in the Senate is the Senate Finance Committee. Okay. And so they're supposed to do their 12 bills, and then we get together and decide what we're going to agree on for those reports in a regular order sense, or if it breaks down, then we go with the omnibus or the continuing resolution.
So there might be some confusion among my statewide audience members about the difference between appropriations and Ways and Means, the two committees. Now, so the latter, Ways and Means, they're largely responsible for raising the revenue for the required to finance, correct, right? And whereas your committee provides and releases the funds, is that?
Correct. Ways and Means kind of handles their wheelhouse is tax issues, how you raise the revenue to run the government on, and then appropriations are the ones who says this is how we're going to spend the money.
Now, you said in that statement I cited that your being on the committee helps you better advocate for Nevada's issues. Tell us how so. Is there some examples you can give?
Well, there's two elements to that, and those are, first of all, in an oversight sense, when you're on the Money Committee and you say, hey, Department of Interior, we'd like you to come in and talk to us about what you're doing through the Bureau of Reclamation, through the Bureau of Land Management, through the Forest Service or whatever, they tend to show up when they know that you're going to be sitting in judgment on their budget. phenomenal post for oversight, which is one of the things that's in our wheelhouse. The other part of it is in actually setting those priorities in terms of this line item is going to get this amount versus that amount. Recently I had some folks, for instance, from Ducks Unlimited in saying, hey, we're getting some funding for some major projects in Nevada. It comes through the department, or it comes through Fish and Wildlife, Dan Ash's folks, and we want you to keep an eye on that line item in the process. So it puts you in a position to actually be hands-on for those decisions.
You know, these so-called power of the purse committees, Senate Finance, Ways and Means, of course, Appropriations, they really are considered quite powerful and influential. And for a relatively small state like Nevada, how important is it that we have you on that committee?
Well, I think it's a piece of the puzzle in terms of you don't want all your eggs in one basket. I mean, we've got some pretty good coverage. Dina Titus is on transportation and infrastructure. Crescent Hardy's on resources, natural resources. Congressman Heck, slipped there. Congressman Heck's on armed services. So this gives us a pretty good thing in terms of taking care of a lot of the things that are most important to a Western state that is growing.
Does having a person like you on appropriations, you gave a good example a moment ago of a project that helps Nevada. Does it mean that some Nevada projects might have a better chance of getting funded, having a strong voice on there, or if at least stronger than if that was the case where there was no representation? Well,
you hope it does, because it's the perspective of working the issue from inside the committee as opposed to outside in.
Sure.
So you have better access to the staff, you have better access to the Cardinals, the subcommittee chairman,
Sure.
You have better access to Hal Rogers, the chairman of the committee.
Okay. When we return, his special areas of influence, we'll tell you about Congressman Amodei's appropriations subcommittees and why you should be glad that Nevada has a voice on them. That's just ahead.
You're watching Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, brought to you by Caesars Entertainment, Las Vegas Sands Corporation, the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada, Jim Marsh Automotive, the Rogich Communications Group, and by Champion Chevrolet Reno.
Safety. We all think about it. You think about it when he buckles in, when you check your mirrors and put away your phone. RTC thinks about safety too. In fact, we create it. Center turn lanes mean fewer blind spots. Bike lanes keep cyclists and you safe. Roundabouts reduce injury collisions. And all these crosswalks are designed to keep families like yours safe. Safety is your priority, and it's ours too. Every day, in everything we do.
Want more federal news that affects Nevada, its businesses, and its residents? Then you need to subscribe to Nevada's Washington Watch newsletter, your sole source of online news direct from Washington, D.C. Visit joycecommunications.com and subscribe today.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. Play responsibly.
We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
This girl is very pretty. It's inciting feelings of jealousy in me. We should pick on her.
I'm insecure about some things, so I think we should put some me stuff on here. Maybe even some lies, too.
Yeah.
I just want to be accepted by you both. So I'm going to send this to my friends so they think I'm cool.
Kids bully for all kinds of reasons. None of them are good. Find ways to get involved at flipthescriptnow.org.
Help Nevada Humane Society save the lives of orphan kittens by becoming a foster care volunteer. Over 2,000 kittens a year need temporary care.
These kittens need food and personal attention until they're old enough for adoption. Foster care is fun, rewarding, and truly saves lives.
I love fostering. I have fostered almost 50 kittens so far, and it is so rewarding.
If you can foster kittens for a few weeks, we can find them homes for life. To learn how you can become a foster care volunteer, call or visit Nevada Humane Society.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our show on the House Appropriations Committee. My guest, the sole Nevadan on this very powerful body, and he is Nevada U.S. Congressman Mark Amodei. Well, let's look this segment at the Congressman's Appropriations subcommittees. First, the purpose of a subcommittee is to determine funding for various projects. However, in many cases, centralized control is held by the senior appropriation committees of both the House and the Senate. All congressional subcommittees must submit their budgets yearly to continue to receive funds. Some committees are answerable to the Appropriations Committee, including Defense, Agriculture, Homeland Security. Others involve transportation, rural development, and education. Meanwhile, my guest serves on 3 appropriations subcommittees. These are the Interior, Environment, and Related Agencies, Financial Services, and the Legislative Branch Subcommittee, of which he is the Vice Chairman. Congressman, so while researching for today's show, I looked at some subcommittee work that you might most want to talk about today. Let's kick it off by mentioning this example of your work related to the 2016 Interior and Environment Appropriations Bill. You successfully got an amendment in it passed that clarifies the process for products designated as made in America. Tell us about that.
Well, that had to do with some of our manufacturers in Nevada who make things like fire hydrants and stuff like that in a growing state for all the underground engineering stuff. Several manufacturers in the state who, employ people, do all the things you want in terms of clean industries in the state. And so there was some protectionist language in some of the EPA regs that we needed to try to get rid of so that these folks could continue to exist in Nevada. And so we were successful in that, working with our folks, and an example of something where you don't pass a bill, but you are able to insert language in the appropriations process in those bills to basically get to your objective.
Now tell us why a Nevada business person would care about that Made in America title.
Well, because if they manufacture a product that one small segment goes out of the country to have rubber coating put on it, for instance, in a valve, and it comes back to have that designated now, even though it was cast in America, manufactured in America, had one small process done outside, and by the way, not in derogation of somebody who was doing it in the country, you had to go there to get it done, then you're like, hey, we're not really doing violence to the concept of we want to buy American, buy local. So let's let these people keep operating.
I see. What does the Financial Services Subcommittee do, and do you have any examples of some Nevada work?
You know, they've got a broad sweep over a lot of federal agencies. Obviously, the ones that come to mind are banking, credit unions, those sorts of things that are all private sector economy. Really, really important in terms when you're a state that's growing, you want the ability to have capital there for small businesses and folks like that, and also to oversee the other agencies in there to make sure that we're not making it too hard to be in business or too hard to stay in business. In a state of, a little over 3 million people, it's like we've grown a lot, but we're still a small state, and so you got to keep your eye on the heartbeat of that goose that lays the golden eggs, which in my view is private industry.
Now, regarding these 3 subcommittees specifically, and I guess some of the overall appropriations, the funding in general, you go home a lot, obviously, and visit with your constituents all the time. Do these, for instance, with the Made in America situation, did several companies approach you and say, look, this label's important to us, here's why, et cetera, now you bring that back to Washington? Kind of explain that to my audience, how it begins and how that little kernel develops.
I will tell you that in my opinion, the neatest thing about appropriations is oversight. So when a constituent or a constituent company in Nevada says, we've got a problem with how EPA is interpreting this particular language, then it puts you in a position to go, before we talk about your budget, I need to know what's going on here and what the authority is. And it puts you in a position where when you have the authority over their budget, they tend to respond when you say, I need to talk with you about something, so that we can get things squared away in a very transparent way, but take care of folks that have a major impact on our economy.
Finally, what is the Legislative Branch Subcommittee? What is...
That is, it's kind of the Capitol Campus Committee, and so they say, hey, listen, there's 3 committees that maybe people don't like as much. I'm a history guy, and so when they said Ledge Branch up, it's like you have jurisdiction over the Architect of the Capitol Police, the Library of Congress, the Government Printing Office. So it's kind of the function of Capitol Hill as a campus, which is a neat thing in terms of we've been out to tour all the different agencies that do that stuff, get familiar with them, stuff like that, and the overall history perspective of when you're dealing with the architect of the Capitol, the Library of Congress in terms of their early Nevada stuff. So it's kind of a, I've stayed on it just because I like it. Yep, like it. So
get a tour around.
Yep. Pretty familiar with the town as the town, if you will, in terms of our operations as a federal campus.
And when we return, just ahead, the big job of the Appropriations Committee, of course, that is the annual huge omnibus budget bill. We'll get my guest thoughts on this year's fiscal budget decisions. That's just ahead.
Nevada's direct link to Capitol Hill. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. The only statewide Nevada news show based in Washington, D.C. All the top federal matters that matter most to Nevadans. Marilee talks with our congressional delegation and other leaders about the federal news you need to know. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. Nevada's Eye on Capitol Hill.
Safety. We all think about it. You think about it when he buckles in, when you check your mirrors and put away your phone. RTC thinks about safety too. In fact, we create it. Center turn lanes mean fewer blind spots. Bike lanes keep cyclists and you safe. Roundabouts reduce injury collisions, and all these crosswalks are designed to keep families like yours safe. Safety is your priority, and it's ours too. Every day, in everything we do.
Every child follows a path in life. For many, that path will lead them to a door that gives them a place to grow, to learn, to belong, a place to forge their future. Because while many doors open, these doors transform. They did for us. Support your local Boys and Girls Clubs. Great futures start here.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No, no, no.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it.
While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed ours.
Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of one of the most important committees on Capitol Hill, and that is, of course, the House Appropriations Committee. My guest today is the sole Nevadan, as we've told you on that committee, Nevada U.S. Congressman Mark Amodei. Well, if you need maybe the top example of the role of the committee, you might have heard of the annual Omnibus Appropriations Bill. That's the legislation that provides discretionary funding for the federal government for the fiscal year. It includes full funding for the 12 annual appropriations bills through the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. This year's bill reflects the increased domestic discretionary funding and includes a myriad of policies items aimed at stopping waste and abuse, increasing transparency and accountability at federal agencies, and halting administrative overreach that hinders economic growth. Chairman Hal Rogers said of the bill, quote, "It provides responsible funding for nearly all of the federal government while helping to stop wasteful and unnecessary spending and reining in regular regulatory overreach that hinders growth and job creation. Congressman, I focused on this big bill a couple reasons. It's the biggest thing, obviously. And also, when you ran for Congress, you emphasized job growth, the economic environment of Nevada, and economic expansion. And you've added a big focus since being here on eliminating fraud and abuse. So I thought that I wanted your opinion on how this year's omnibus bill kind of helps you achieve that.
Well, the overreaching idea from the House side, from the perspective obviously I'm familiar with, is that you are trying to facilitate that private investment, private business environment so that people have jobs, which provide health care, which take care of retirement things, which take care of the issues of how do I eat, where do I sleep, what happens to me if I get sick, and by the way, what happens when I get too old to work, how are all those things taken care of? So I am of the opinion that when private industry is doing good, those things all tend to take care of themselves, more so than when local, state, and federal governments struggle to do that. So the omnibus represented what we were faced with at the end, where the Senate didn't do any appropriations bills. So we put all those 12 of the House ones in with what the Senate input was, saw where that came out, kind of a super conference committee, if you will, and that was the end product of it, to fund the government so we're not dealing with shutdown issues, and get forward with the other business of governing.
You know, we should mention that this year's package includes a lifting on the ban on U.S. oil exports. Right. And, you know, the Democrats, especially progressives, they didn't really love that. But the House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi told the press that without that provision, I don't think that the House, would have passed it. What do you?
Well, I think, once again, policy is kind of a living, breathing thing. So when we banned oil exports, you know, several decades back, things have changed since then. We've become more competitive. I don't think we need to be as protectionist. The Democrats agreed. So here we have a policy now where the U.S. Energy sector, specifically the oil folks, have another market to compete with folks on that world market. Good policy thing. Competition is a good thing. So that was one of the good things in it.
And House Speaker Paul Ryan, he said of the repeal, quote, he called it, you know, an outdated, antiquated ban on oil exports. And he said repealing it is a win for the American people. How does it help Nevada's and the nation's economy?
Well, actually, Nevada, as you know, because I think you did a show on it, has actually entered the oil game, if you will, through the folks at Noble Oil up in the Elko area. Now, their activities have been decreased a little bit because of the drop in the price of oil, but nonetheless, when that cycles back up, that'll be back on the screen, and Nevada will be a competitive area in terms of producing oil from the fracking processes and things like that.
You know, there's a lot here too in this bill for the funding on the global war on terror. You know, when that committee first convened in 1865, there wasn't an ISIS, you know, and other terrorist group. There weren't something we were worried about at that time, obviously. What you have to fund has really grown and changed never even mind grown. Of course, things have grown, but things have really changed over the year, and you have to really focus on that terror component now.
Well, you do.
Security.
You take the world as you find it, and it's not the old days like somebody's got to come across an ocean in large numbers. It's like, heck, one or two people together, even one person can now potentially be a threat. So that's one of those moving targets where you try to balance our ability to fund everything with being responsible in that. So that's one of the targets that's very important on the House side, is making sure we're doing the right thing for national security and defense.
Overall, you're happy with the bill?
You know, I was disappointed because there was a lot of Western stuff in there that didn't end up getting in there.
Like what?
But we spoke with, a lot of the stuff that Rob Bishop did. We had some sage hen stuff. Most people call it sage grouse. It's like, hey, those of us that have been around for a while call it sage hen.
Yeah, we just did a show with you on that.
Yeah, but the good news is that the Speaker committed to us after that. A group of us from the West got together with him and says, I'm going to try to make that right this year. So
great.
We're looking forward to that. I think we wouldn't be in this position if we hadn't have done that work. So maybe we didn't get it as quick as we wanted, but stay tuned. We'll see how that turns out.
Okay. When we return, my guest's thoughts on Nevada's top appropriations needs now and in the future. That's still to come on our final segment. Stay with us.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Nevada's direct link to Capitol Hill. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. The only statewide Nevada news show based in Washington, D.C. All the top federal matters that matter most to Nevadans. Marilee talks with our congressional delegation and other leaders about the federal news you need to know. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. Nevada's Eye on Capitol Hill.
It's already rented.
If you believe you've been discriminated against in housing because of your race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, or disability, call HUD or visit hud.gov/fair housing. Fair housing is your right. Use it.
Safety. We all think about it. You think about it when he buckles in, when you check your mirrors and put away your phone. RTC thinks about safety too. In fact, we create it. Center turn lanes mean fewer blind spots. Bike lanes keep cyclists and you safe. Roundabouts reduce injury collisions, and all these crosswalks are designed to keep families like yours safe. Safety is your priority, and it's ours too. Every day, in everything we do.
A family's presence in the hospital helps children heal faster and cope better. But children who need specialized medical care are often sent out of the Reno area for treatment. Costs can get unmanageable, and it can be difficult for families to accompany their sick child. The Travel for Treatment program, presented by Ronald McDonald House Charities Northern Nevada, gives parents travel assistance when a child's medical treatment is not available at a local hospital. Please contact us today for more information and to see how you can help. Donate online at rmhc-reno.org.
Want more federal news that affects Nevada, its businesses, and its residents? Then you need to subscribe to Nevada's Washington Watch newsletter, your sole source of online news direct from Washington, D.C. Visit joycecommunications.com and subscribe today.
And we are back with the closing segment of our Eye on Washington show. We've loved having as our guest today Nevada U.S. Congressman Mark Amodei. And we don't have a lot of time to close out today, but when you look ahead, speaking of appropriations, what are Nevada's top appropriation needs now and 5 and 10 years down the line?
A lot of them deal with public lands issues through those various bureaus in terms of affecting our water, affecting decisions on how we manage our land, affecting how the feds collaborate with county and local and state folks on a myriad of things which affect how things go in Nevada, whether it's the ag industry, the mining industry, recreation industry, energy. All of those things are things that are a razor focus for us as we go through the appropriations process.
We'll look forward to talking to you about it again about a year from now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Find out what Nevada got. All right, you'll be around. And that is it for this week's Eye on Washington. Be sure to join us next time as we discuss more important federal matters and their impact on you in Nevada. Hope you'll visit joycecommunications.com or our Facebook page for more news from the Hill that impacts Nevadans, and watch any show you've missed on our YouTube page. Thanks for joining us on Eye on Washington. I'm Marilee Joyce in Washington, D.C. Have a great day.